Recording in progress.
Okay, Mayor, we're ready to go. Thank you, Mayor. And we can barely hear you. If you could bring your mic up or make sure it's on. Okay, and if you could raise it a little bit.
Repeat myself?
Yeah, if you could raise it a little bit, it would help us. Thank you. Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
Councilmember McCardle.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Sonmore. I'm not sure if she's logged in yet, but she will be here. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
And Mayor Matsimo to right.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So tonight, we're going to have a follow-up discussion on the multifamily property tax exemption program, and that will be with our Assistant City Manager, Stephen Clifton. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. I'm just reading notes. Yes, we're ready.
There we go. That's better. Okay, good evening, Mayor, City Council members. For the record, I'm Stephen Clifton, Assistant City Manager. On June 16th and July 18th, 2022, Adam Seidman with the Concord Group presented findings on MFTE programs within the Puget Sound area. More specifically, the Concord Group prepared tables and other information referencing the types of programs offered by each city and thresholds of affordability, if any, required for each. Additionally, Mr. Seidman also presented an analysis of various MFTE scenarios from the developer perspective and an analysis of fiscal impacts of MFTE from the city's perspective. Following the July 18th presentation, the City Council discussed various MFTE options, and Council indicated they would like to move forward with possibly approving a MFTE program. To do so, they also requested information related to several options, primarily fiscal and financial impacts for each. To prepare for tonight's presentation, I called a few neighboring cities, reviewed the revised Code of Washington in consultation with city staff, the city attorney, city manager, and also Mr. Seidman, and I spoke with a couple of developers and real estate entities. To help the City Council with making a decision on how to move forward, the August 11, 2022 memorandum contains a brief overview of the past actions by the Mountlake Terrace City Council related to past actions on multifamily tax exemption, and then also information on recent presentations by the Concord Group, and hyperlinks to information presented in June and July are included on pages 1, 2, and 10 of the memorandum. It also contains a section on next steps, i.e. what's necessary to implement a MFTE program, impacts to the city, for example, fiscal and program administration, a MFTE decision-making process matrix, which is referenced as Exhibit A in your council packet, and we'll also discuss that later. And then a broad summary of RCW 14 provisions related to MFTE, and that's referenced as Attachment B. And then lastly, we can discuss process and project timeline. Regarding the July 18th, 2022 City Council work session, although not a consensus, the Council generally requested preparing information related to 5 options. For reference, these are listed on page 2 of the August 11, 2022 memorandum and are depicted on the screen. I should note that the sentence above the table in the memorandum is worded incorrectly, and it actually should read, below is a table that summarizes information as it relates to options City Council identified as wanting to discuss further. The numbers and percentages were prepared by the Concord Group. Before the Council can approve a MFTE program, there are several steps that need to take place, which are outlined on pages 3 and 4 of the memorandum. And we're hoping to receive some guidance tonight from the council on the type of MFTE program it wishes to consider. And the guidance that you provide tonight will help the city staff in terms of preparing letters to taxing districts, preparing a resolution, and also preparing an ordinance. The City Council may consider and approve a resolution of intent to designate a residential target area, and then a hearing must be held to consider and approve an MFTE ordinance, which will establish program requirements and parameters. Before we move to the decision matrix slides, it's important to note that choosing an 8-year or a 12-year option or program is not an either-or decision. The council could choose to approve an 8-year program with or without affordability options. The council could choose a 12-year program, which requires at least 20% of the units be at 80 to 15% of area median income. And the council could choose both an 8-year and a 12-year program, leaving the choice of which program to utilize up to the development community. Unless the City Council has any questions, I can begin presenting a decision matrix, which we hope will help the City Council decide on the type of program to adopt. So first, I'd like to discuss the matrix related to an 8-year MFTE program. And so what we'd like to do is just ask the council a series of questions, and depending on how you answer, that will actually take us or not take us to the next step. And we think this will help you quite a bit. So the first question is, does the City Council support adopting an 8-year MFTE program? So we would be looking for a consensus from the council on each one of these questions as we move through the sequence. Yes. Virginia, for technical reasons, how should the council respond to these questions? Should we just get a
Well,
general?
how would the council like to do it? Would you like to do it individually and go around the table, or do you want to do a show of hands? I mean, Mayor, how would you like to proceed?
A point of clarification. On the 8%, is this the no percent AMI or the 80% AMI?
We'll first ask you if you want an 8-year program.
Oh,
If
okay.
the answer is
All right.
yes,
Okay.
then we ask you, do you want below market rents?
Okay.
And then, depending on the answer, then we'll get to the thresholds, the percentages.
Excellent, excellent, thank you.
So if we do hands up or hands down, or can you see everybody?
I think, well, either if you would like me to count, or you can count and give me the direction. And also, I would like to let you know I got a message from Councilmember Sommer that she's not feeling well and will not be in the meeting tonight. So it's just the 6 of you here.
All right.
So, I mean, I can try to see. I think you might be able to see better than I, Mayor, since you're closer, and then give us the direction, if that would be great. Good?
Or I could count. I could see
You
all of you
can see
really
everybody.
easily, and I could
Thank
let
you.
Virginia know then.
Thanks.
Okay. So the first question again is, does the council support adopting an 8-year MFTE program? Show of hands, we see all 6. Next question, does the council support requiring below market rents as part of the 8-year MFTE program? If yes, then we'll have some more questions. If no, then that pretty much stops it then for the 8-year program. So I see,
You don't want that.
Point of clarification.
yes.
Are you on the first column with a no percentage AMI?
I'm on item number 2, under the 8-year program.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That would be slide number 6.
Okay, and I got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me,
so
was
I'll ask
there-
that question one more time.
Thank you.
Does council support requiring below market rents as part of the 8-year MFTE program? I'm counting 2. Mayor, I can't tell if your hand's up or,
I'm just reading the others to see.
okay.
I guess I'll pass.
You'll pass? Okay. Number 2 has, no. So that would stop it for the 8-year program. And we were hoping it would be this clear, so that's good. Okay, so if the council's inclined to support a 12-year MFTE program, does the council support adopting such? See 5? 5. Yeah, 5 yes. Okay. Does the council want below market rents to be at or below 80%? In state law, the range is 80 to 115, but city councils are allowed to allow lower thresholds. So the question is, does the council want below market rents to be at or below 80%?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So if they wanted to do a 95%, the range is 80 to 115, so they can do anything from 80 to 115
Correct.
without having to go through any more of this?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the state law thresholds, but as presented by Adam in the last 2 meetings, some cities have 60%, some have 70, some have 80. It varies, and I think Edmonds has 115, if I remember correctly. Yeah. What's that? Linwood. Yep. Okay. So I'll ask that one more time, because I'm not sure I got a full count on that. So does the council want below market rents to be at or below 80% for 12-year?
Can you ask if they want above or below 80%? Because
Yes, yeah. Okay. Does the council want market rates to be at, above, or below 80%? So we'll start above.
This is for town center.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we want 80%, we're supposed to vote yes on this one.
No, the question was, do you want them to be above 80? If you want, and then we can ask you at 80, and then we can ask you below 80.
All right.
So the question is, would you like below market rents to be above 80%? I'm seeing 1. Okay. Does the council want the below market rents to be at 80%? I'm seeing 1, 2.
Can I vote again?
Does the city council want below market rents to be below 80%? And I'm seeing 2. Okay. We do not have a consensus on any of those. So,
maybe how many want it to be 81% and above versus 80% and below.
yeah.
That way,
Yeah.
or 80% above or below 80%. That would kind of be the breaking point. 80% above is what state law stipulates. If you want it to be something less than state law, 79% EMI and below. So it's 80%
Yeah.
and above or 79% and below. That's really the question, I think.
Okay.
So I,
Do you want to go with state law, or do you want a stricter income requirement?
Most jurisdictions have kind of a flat 80, the baseline of which relates to
Right,
state
and
law.
we're
Some go
talking about-
below for,
We're talking about town center.
we are.
And so I don't want to make it so that we vote in what we want and then nothing happens because it doesn't pencil for anybody. That's my fear.
The lower the percentage, the less, if I'm correct, Adam, and I hope you're on the line, the less profit or less likely it is for a developer to utilize.
Right, and so we were going to have empty lots because they're not going to do anything. Because outside of town center, I have ideas, lots of ideas that we can do all the way down to 30%. But in town center, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I guess, so as I'm looking at this MFT program and kind of the matrix on the decisions that are before us, I want to make sure that I understand what that looks like as far as the net fiscal impact to us as a community. So what we are potentially giving up, and then what, I guess with each of these. And so I guess for me, one of the things that I'm looking at, you know, as we are looking at the difference, so we all agreed that an 8-year with no AMI requirements was something we wanted to move forward with. So I think there's a great plan in place to get development going.
We didn't all
And-
agree.
Oh. All agree on what? I'm sorry, say that again? What did I say?
You said we all agree 80% no AMI. I did not agree with that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I
apologize.
just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
the
yeah.
record was
No.
reflected.
We couldn't see you.
I apologize. Thank you. So I guess as I'm looking at kind of our options for 12 years, where, I mean, the net fiscal impact is significantly higher to us with a 12-year AMI. So we're looking at a net fiscal impact to us as a community. The 8-year has a $1 million negative impact. The 12-year has a $1.63 million negative impact and a $4.02 million negative impact if we are looking at extensions, which I think we had talked about with some openness previously. So I guess for me, I think that's where I land. Like, I would love to, we had this analysis done that made it clear that it was profitable at 70% for the development community to come in at this 12-year MFT. And we also heard different feedback from our development community, which again is where I think that 75% makes a lot of sense and balances those two competing interests, which is where I would again like to see us land. So.
Yeah, on the, you might be referring to the table in the staff report, and I think what's important to highlight is on row number 2, the revenue lost is only, it's hypothetical. In other words, it's a development with tax exemptions versus a development without. But there's no guarantee that the development without will actually get built without the MFTE program. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's really a foregone amount of money. Yeah. So I hope that helps. Yeah. So I know the Concord Group initially recommended to the City Council 70 to 80% for the 12-year. You know, there's also the option where you could do 10% of the units at 70% and 10% of the units at 80%, in which case it averages out to 75%. There's always that option. I mean, you can have different percentages. It's really up to the council on what you prefer or want. Here. Okay, so I guess we'll ask the question, would the council like AMI to be 80% or above? I see.
80% and above, or 79% and below. So that's the break point. If you go above 8%, we'll narrow it down on that. If you want it
Okay.
79% or below, we'll narrow that down. So that's kind of
Okay, so we're asking both options in the same question, and then the council can decide amongst themselves which option they like. So it's above 80%, AMI or 79% and below. So.
Above, below.
Sure, that works. Yeah, it works. Yeah.
So we're asking about 80% or above on this question.
Or 79% and below. So it's up to the council to decide, do you want to go 80% or higher?
Yeah,
Or
so we can
79%
ask
and
that
lower?
question.
And then once you decide if you want to go 80% or higher or 79% and lower, then you can narrow down the specific percentage. That might help.
Yeah, maybe start with how many of the council want to have the income threshold set at 80% and above?
I see 4. Consensus of 4. Okay. So then the question is, which percentage would you like to us to move forward with and include within an ordinance? Could be 80, could be 85, could be 90.
So go ahead.
I'd be comfortable with 80.
Okay. I'm seeing head nods. Is the council comfortable with 80%? I see 3,
I guess so,
4.
yeah.
Okay. So to sum it up, what I've heard is the council would like to move forward on us including within a MFTE ordinance an 8-year program without an affordability requirement and a 12-year program at 80% AMI, and the state law requires flat 20% be set aside for that. And so we still have some more questions for you. And this relates to how the council would like to apply the AMI percentages to the specific number of units. And so now we've made the decision on the years of exemption and the AMI thresholds. And so now we need to figure out how to proportion those amongst the units. And so I'll use the hypothetical 250 unit development that Adam's included in his presentation the last 2 times. And if you were to take the 12-year program and set aside 20%, that would be 50 units. And let's say hypothetically that there are 10 studios and 20 one-bedrooms and 10 two-bedrooms and 10 three-bedrooms, then you could say, city staff, I would like that 80% applied across those 50 units. In other words, 10 one studios would be at 80%, 10 one-bedrooms at 80%, 20, there was 20, and then 10 and 10. And in speaking with the city of Shoreline, they said they actually require the developer to show where those units are distributed throughout the building because, you know, typically some units that might be near a trash receptacle or something like that are going to get discounted anyway. And so it's important that they take the number of units and distribute it throughout the building so that they're not all clustered in, for example, the least desirable place, which is where a developer would typically discount the units anyway. Does that make sense? Okay. So we've talked amongst ourselves, and that's something that seems like a very equitable way of distributing the AMI percentage across the 20% that's required for whatever development. If it's a 100-unit development, that would be 20 units, and then however it breaks down, you would apply that percentage proportionally that way.
Also, that they don't have a separate entrance, that everybody uses the same entrance.
Right.
And then that everyone uses the same entrance so that they're not segregated that way. Also, there's one building in Portland, from what I understand, about 10 years ago, they had $1 million, I think it was a condominium type complex, and then they had public housing in there with $1 million housing. So, and everybody was fine with it. So conception for people, there's no stigma. Usually with public housing, there's an address that's a stigma.
Yeah. And the council's desire to have one flat AMI threshold, that's pretty easy to use that and apply that proportionally to the number of units. Some cities like Shoreline has, for example, near their light rail station, they have 60 to 70% for their 1 and 2 bedrooms, 60% for studios, 70% for 1 bedrooms, or 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms. And then away from the light rail station, they have 70% for studios and 1 bedrooms and 8% for 2 plus. So the 80% is a different way of applying it.
Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
Any questions?
Just quick, you gave us a presentation that showed us what the cities were doing, and you just used Shoreline as an example. What was their 8-year? Do they have an AMI or no AMI?
No, they have a 12-year only.
I believe they don't have an 8-year.
Yep. I remember that. I didn't have to look at my book.
And they have a
I hear Adam in the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just
I guess.
point out they have a light rail station, which is why I said we should not have an AMI
They
on
have
that 8-year.
2
but
light rail
I'm done.
stations.
Well, all the better.
Okay, and then we are recommending to offset the cost of administering the MFTE program. And within the memorandum, I discuss all the steps it takes to actually implement this type of program. And there are annual reports and having to review financial information and everything else. So we're recommending a base application fee of $5,000 plus an annual fee of $2,000 for monitoring. I should note that in King County, Arch actually helps the cities administer this program. I did call Hasco, I did call AHA, and it's uncertain whether or not there's capacity in Snohomish County to help the city administer this program. So that's why we have an annual fee, because it looks like we might have to do it ourselves unless we can find some help.
Well, Arch is paid for by all the cities. Arch in King County, it's paid for by all the cities. So we were trying to make AHA to be similar to that, but we're not going to get that far yet. Go ahead, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we know how that application fee compares to other communities, I guess, in Snohomish County?
Yeah, a few cities have 2,500, 3,000 plus, and we're doing this all by ourselves instead of utilizing another entity to help us. And so it's going to be extensive. It's an extensive amount of work, so we feel that's a pretty reasonable fee considering that the developer will be saving millions of dollars over the lifetime of this. So,
Thank you.
yeah. I would like to discuss the schedule with you. In this slide, I do reference some previous meetings that took place on July 16th and 18th, including today. And then what's coming next is the city staff will be issuing letters to taxing districts to kind of give them a heads up that the city council will be considering approving a resolution of intent to identify a residential target area and an ordinance that also adopts a MFTE program. And so we will send that out to taxing districts. And so in the near term, we have August 25th, 2022, or September 1st, 2022.
Stefan?
The 25th.
We have a question
Yes.
and a clarification that Mayor Pro Tem would like to ask.
Just, sorry, Stefan, just backing up to the related decisions. The first decision, did we come to any consensus on direction from the council on determining the level, allowing the market to determine the level, or give specific direction otherwise, I guess?
For the 8-year, the council chose not to assign an affordability
Right.
to that. So it's just a clean 8-year MFTE exemption. And so there's not much to yeah,
Right,
calculate on that.
but where did we land on the 12-year?
The 12-year, 80% flat.
You have a question here as to,
I believe you're asking about the mix of housing units?
The mix,
It'll-
right.
So it's the mix that
right,
you're,
did
yeah.
you?
I don't think
That
we
was a
got
question.
direction on
I
the
thought that was a
mix.
question that was being asked of us to give direction on.
Correct.
And did we get any direction? No, that's what I thought. So that's what I was asking for clarification on, as far as, do you want further direction, or are we just going with the market?
Oh, yes, I asked that question. I thought I saw 4, but I can ask that again on the, how the AMI will be proportioned out, and then we'll use the 250. So you have 50 subject to AMI. And so the question is, do you want that percentage apportioned out based on the number of units for studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom? And I talked about let's say there's 10 units studio, 20 units, 1-bedroom, 10 units for 2-bedroom, and then 10 units for 3 bedrooms. That AMI would be apportioned out very similar to that. So you'd have 10 units of the studio. Is that making sense?
I guess I'm just afraid we're overcomplicating, which to me should be a simple question. But
If we could go maybe a step higher, question would be, does the city council want to let the market decide the mix of affordable units, or does the council want to identify how the formula for that mix of affordable units? I think that, so we can narrow down, do you want to let the market decide, or do you want to set that mix? And then if you decide to set that mix, then we can talk about, should it be based on, should it match the percentage of unit types in the building, percentage-wise, or something else? So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So I'll re-ask the question and what Scott just talked about. Does the council, or is the council interested in letting the market determine how to apportion that AMI within the development itself? I see 2, is that correct? 2, okay. Does the council support or prefer the apportionment be based on the number of units for whatever the amount they might be based on the size of the development? So hypothetically, 50 units would be subject to AMI. And as I described earlier, does the council support that?
It is just 20%. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, so let's say 20% of the units in this building are 1-bedrooms, then 20% of that 20% that we've set aside for income-restricted units would be the 1-bedroom.
Yes.
They would just be proportional to the units that they're building.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make
If
sure
it
I know what
were-
I'm saying yes to.
If all 50 units were 2-bedroom units, then they would all be 80%, all 50. Yeah.
Councilmember Woodard?
I believe Stefan just answered it or put it in context. The difference would be in the 250, if there were 3 bedrooms all the way down the studio, and we said let the market say, oh, we'll just use it all for the studios, which is effectively saying we could care less about families. But here we have it. So that's what I hear us saying. So we're actually saying we want to make sure that that's equitable across the board. If you need a 3-bedroom, you should be able to access that 80%. If you need a studio, you should be able to. And we're just basing it off of however they decide to create their establishment. So I heard equity, and that's why I'm saying thumbs up.
Yes. Okay. So
That
I
was a thumbs up
see,
for the rate.
that's good, yeah, ratio versus market.
Yes, yes. So
Thank
we
you.
set the ratio versus we let the market set. They may still do it, right? But I would rather us not go off of the kind-heartedness of a developer and instead say, hey, residents, we are recognizing families are below the 80 at all levels, whether you've got 7 kids or no kids. But I don't want to price people out because we were only thinking about the market.
So
great
far, I've seen Councilmember Woodard, Murray, and Matsumoto Wright, Mayor, express support for that option. Is anyone else? Okay.
I mean,
What's that?
I mean, when you put it that way, Councilmember Woodard, no, I mean, I'm comfortable either way, I guess. I mean, if the consensus of the council is to go that direction, then that's fine.
Okay. We just got a yes from Councilmember McCardle, so I see, I think 5 then. Okay. Okay. So the schedule that's before you currently, there are a couple options here. The first thing that needs to occur, aside from sending letters out to taxing districts, is to pass a resolution of intent to establish a residential target area. And there are a couple near-term options. August 25th, 2022 would have to be a special meeting, but we could actually do that. I'm not sure if we can do that via Zoom, but that should really take you, if there's a consensus that you want it applied to the town center area, that could take you as little as 15 minutes. And then you could set the date and the time of the public hearing. An August 25th date would allow us to have a September 19th public hearing to adopt the multifamily tax exemption program. It'll have to be later than the 19th if September 1st, if that date's used to consider the MFTE resolution of intent. And the reason for that is under state law, 8414, it does require 2 notices, and they have to be at least a week apart, and they have to be within a certain time frame of the hearing. And so and then also because of when you have to submit it to the Everett Herald. So we looked at that as well. So I guess the first question is whether or not the council would like to have a special meeting on August 25th to consider the resolution of intent, or September 1st to consider it, or any other date.
Is August 25th a Thursday night?
Yes.
I'm not in town, but I'll Zoom
Okay.
in.
Mayor, we can't hear you, but I think you asked if that's a Thursday night.
Is it
Yes,
a
it
Thursday
is.
night? And yes, it is, and I won't be, I'll have to Zoom in.
I think we were proposing that staff could be here, and since we anticipate it being a short meeting, that the council could all Zoom in that night, if that would work for you.
Why do we need a special meeting? Can't we just do this as part of our regular business?
It's a 5-Monday month, so what Stefan was saying is the next work session wouldn't be until September 1st, and the next regular meeting with Labor Day isn't until September 6th, and then that would push out your public hearing because of notification requirements until October 3rd. So if you wanted to put this in place and have the public hearing on September 19th, for the public hearing, you'd need to have a special meeting in late August due to us having to publish the public hearing twice. It's kind of a unusual circumstance. It'll just push it out 2 weeks if you wait until the beginning of September.
A unique requirement under this program is that the process to implement the MFTE program requires that the council adopt a resolution to set a public hearing. Typically, we set public hearings administratively, but because the council, in this case, has to do it by resolution, we need a meeting for that resolution to be adopted. And unless there's a special meeting at the end of August for that resolution, it won't come before you until September. Then we notice that public hearing, and so the date gets pushed out likely beyond September, which was what the council wanted us to target for getting this done. So
Right now, I was just talking with Christy, we don't have any applications in that are forcing an earlier meeting than later. But, you know, I think tonight alone, I think is probably an indication to the development community that they may be able to utilize this in the near term, should they apply. So, you know, just wanted to let you know.
Right, I guess I'm just thinking, why can't we adopt a resolution on the September 1st? During our regular work session?
We could, and then we would just have the public hearing after September 19th, but not that much longer.
The reason for noticing, if you adopt it on September 1st, we have to get it into the Herald, and normally we publish on Fridays, and we have to let them know on Wednesday. So a Thursday night meeting wouldn't publish it until the following week on Monday, and it's a holiday, so it would probably push to Tuesday, and we wouldn't make the timelines for September 19th. So it would push it out to September 29th work session or October 3rd regular meeting.
Got it.
So I guess the question would be if you prefer August 25th or September 1st. I'll ask August 25th first.
Well,
I see 2 yeses. September 1st.
Right, yeah, I mean, whatever.
Okay. I see more for September 1st. Does that sound acceptable to the council? Yes. For the resolution, yes.
that's our regular meeting, isn't it?
Right.
Okay, yeah, then I'm available. So, yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
We can't hear you, Councilmember. Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll put together a letter that we'll send to the taxing districts, and then we'll begin working on the resolution. Our city attorney's actually already drafted the resolution, already drafted the ordinance. So the information you've given us tonight will help us to, insert some of those provisions into the ordinance. And we'll also have some additional ones as well related to the fee and the procedures and things like that into the ordinance. Okay. If there are no more questions, we can move on to the next agenda item. Is that acceptable?
Are there any other questions? Okay, we'll move on then.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so next on our agenda is a review of the city department's performance measures for January to June 2022. And first, we're going to be hearing from the Rec and Parks Director, Jeff Betts, and Ken Courtmatch. Do you have a presentation?
Just 1 second, Mayor, until we pull this up and able to share it on Zoom. Okay, I think we're ready. Well, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. As mentioned, I'm Jeff Betts, I'm the Recreation Parks Director, and with me tonight, you all know, Ken Courtmatch, Parks and Property Management Superintendent.
Good evening.
And we are presenting the 2022 January through June performance measures for Recreation, Parks, and Property Management. Uh-oh, is it working? Wow. So yes, the pool is back. See the new photo there, so we're excited about that. We've been open most of the pandemic, as you know, but programming is starting to pick up again. So we're not short of families and kids and everybody who wants to use the pool of being inside that building and wanting to get in the water, especially this summer. I know that's kind of the next performance measure set, but I'm just living it right now. So the summer's been extremely busy, and I'm super happy that families are back in and everybody wants to get in the water. Next slide. So Recreation and Parks and Property Management provide all these key bullet points that are listed here. Many of our programs and facilities were the only way that people interacted during the pandemic. I've had plenty of people come up and say that they were just really happy that we were open, and a lot of facilities weren't, and there's a lot of other things that you couldn't even do. So coming to the pool was kind of an outlet for a lot of people, not only for exercise, but for that social interaction and just that intergenerational participation, and the other bullet points up there all apply. So Recreation in Parks has seen quite a few increases over past years, as mentioned. We're still quite restricted by staffing that's available, and that's an ongoing battle. I know it's a theme everywhere right now, but we hope to continue to make headway on those issues in the coming months. And just a couple of photos there, and then moving on to the next one. So the metrics that are displayed here, they highlight our 2020 and 2021 full year numbers, and then also in the far right column is the January through June 2022 numbers. And you can see the TBD for overall cost recovery, because we don't have those numbers yet. We don't have through June revenues and expenses, but I've done some preliminary work, and the numbers look way better than the last 2 years. So that's really good news that we're not having such a huge transfer in the first half of the year anyway. So that's good to see. And we'll go to the next slide after that. So also reflected in those numbers from before, you can really see that the overall attendance numbers also reflected those. They really have increased a lot, and thus the cost recovery has increased. But yes, swim capacities are increasing, as shown on this metric as well. But it's kind of a misleading number, that metric, because we could have 10 swim classes and they're, almost full. So great, but we need lots more classes and instructors to be able to increase those revenues and get more kids in those lessons. So reduced lessons, we're still on a very reduced schedule, and part of that reason is really just because we're only open half of Saturdays and we're not open on Sundays at all. So that's really kind of dragging down our numbers, and that's wholly staffing issues. It's not only lifeguards and swim instructors to be open on the weekends, but it's also front desk staff. It's really been difficult to find those people willing to work those times. But also, room and pool rentals are the ones that are really decimated by not being open weekends. You remember all the pool parties we used to have and room rentals and things like that? It's still, we've not restarted those yet since the pandemic. So those are huge budget holes for us. And we hope to get those back open soon. And it really just depends on trying to get staff in the building and getting them to stay so we can continue to stay open on those weekends like we used to. So this slide represents some of the recreation highlights. We hired 2 new aquatics coordinators during this last 6-month period. So they almost started at the exact same time. And also many frontline staff have been hired in all the different divisions. The Craze Summer Swim League came back. So we hadn't done that during the pandemic at all. So it was the first year back, and it was completely full. Our teams were. And so they had a great time. We hosted one day, it was like 2 weeks ago, I think was our date that we hosted. It was really successful. They buy a lot of popcorn when they come in. There's normally a couple hundred people in the building when we do that, so it's pretty good to see. The Aqua Kids Day Camp was full. All of our summer camps actually were maxed out, and they actually were almost sold out early on when we opened registration. It was really a mad rush to get in there. American Red Cross classes were very well received as well. We were able to train quite a few lifeguards, be able to do first aid CPR, so a huge demand for those kinds of classes. And then there's not much on this slide, and it's really, we could have combined it with the last one probably, but we wanted to throw another picture in there. I just really like that picture of he's checking Blake Ballinger out and got his hands on his hips, and so good photo. So really, the two items on here is that staff were able to apply for a couple of childcare grants through the state. One was that $11,150 state childcare grant for supply costs, and then another SEEK grant. We did a $23,000 SEEK grant that was administered by AWC and WRPA, the Washington Recreation Park Association. And that was for enrichment of summer programs. So it really helped us get the kids out on buses and go to field trips and things like that. So those are the highlights for recreation, and I'm going to hand it to Ken for the next section here.
Thank you, Jeff. Evening, Council, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. This is actually my first time back to be in person with you, and it's nice to see you all. I've talked to you at all various events and functions over the last 2 years, but this is the first time I've been before you in a meeting, so it's a pleasure to be here. I'll go over the Parks and Property Management performance measures. The city matrix for this was, we've hovered about the same since the pandemic had happened, but we do expect to see some increases on these percentages. Responses within 2 work days, that's stayed about the same. Vandalism reported is the same or a little bit higher, and the litter and garbage removals is down a little bit from what they were previously. However, I would like to point out that at the end of 2021, I did lose 1 staff member, so until March, I only had 3 parks people. We did backfill that position, and then the council did authorize hiring another position, which wasn't filled until June. So on June 16th, we ended up with another person. So you should see next time around, all of these percentages start to show major increases where we can get to things faster, particularly the litter and garbage removal, because the 1 staff member is actually working a Thursday through Monday shift, so we'll have a full-time person here all the time. So this number historically that's been around 80%, 82% is generally because of weekend coverage, but that's going to jump up to probably 90, 95% annually, as we have somebody that's going to be here almost all the time. These are just some mowing hours, just to kind of show you what it takes just to do one of the tasks that the parks folks do. And when we did discuss bringing on a parks person, I kind of talked about all of the tasks that they do. And this is just one of them. And this is only when they're mowing. So it totals, like for 2021, as opposed to the January through June, they're almost split in half, a little bit different depending on the time of year. But the grand totals for all of these mowings, and we are seeing increases of some of these, for example, Civic Center. Year before last didn't get mowed at all. So we're starting to see increases in certain areas. Down at Ballinger as well, we're seeing increases. But these numbers actually total up to more than 1/3 of an FTE and doing nothing but just mowing. And so having the extra person is going to help. And this is really just to show you what it takes to do what they do. So these numbers are all, they're not actuals. I do take the percentages of how long it takes for each of them to do. But they do about 1/3 of an FTE to get all of the mowing done. Some highlights for parks. The volunteer hours are starting to slowly climb from 2020, where we had just over 600 hours total. And if you think back to before that, in 19 and earlier, we were averaging almost 2,000, more than that even annually. And then in 2020, yeah, we had 600 hours. In this same period, from January to June in 2021, we had brought it up to about 587, and this year we're up to 744. I anticipate that to continue to improve as we go and people want to get out. We're starting to see some real interest in some of the Adopt a Park programs as well. So we'll see those numbers to continue to rise, I'm sure. We should be back to where we were probably by next year. We were able to open Ballinger Park for the water park elements this January, and most of you were in attendance. It had rained and rained and rained, and we had one sunshiny day, and it was a very pleasant afternoon when we did the grand opening for that, but it was a lot of work getting to that point. And then, as mentioned, we did hire some additional staff, a park maintenance worker and a park project manager who's helping us diligently as we get ready for these next projects that are coming around the corner, including the play equipment and trail down at Ballinger and many others that are popping right up. We did do an Earth Day event and Arbor Day event for Terrace City USA. That was our spring even though our combined spring events, the design and permitting for Ballinger Park universally accessible playground, and then the trail as well. Ballinger Park Hall Creek project, design and permitting that is getting ready actually to go out for bid. The bicentennial playground design, we'll be putting that in this fall. And we did apply for a grant for some lighting up at Evergreen 5. On the property management side of things, again, we see some of these numbers that are hanging around the same as they were. There was a property management person brought in as well who works a Thursday through Monday. We only had 2 people that were taking care of all these buildings, including this new one that everybody thinks a brand new building just comes all ready to go and everything's hunky-dory, but it never works out that way. So there was a few extra maintenance requests, probably tied to this building as well as other items that they do. But having a third person is going to make a big difference. However, again, that person was hired at the same time the other one, so in June, mid-June. So you're not going to see a lot of changes in these percentages until next time around when I come to see you in January, probably. Some highlights for property management. We were able to start up the water fountain this year and get it running, and it's running right now, hopefully. We've gotten a lot of comments. People really think that it looks just wonderful in the evenings. So we're pleased with that. We started police office renovations. We got a number of the offices done in the sides, so we've still got to do the middle section, but we're continuing to work on that. And again, we were able to bring on a property management maintenance worker who's working Monday through Thursday, which is very important because the other 2 are off shifted. That means that I have 2 bodies here at all times. And so if somebody does have to go out, or if we do have an emergency, we've got an extra person here to help cover for it. We spent a lot of time preparing to open City Hall to the public. So getting it all ready and making sure that everything was done. And then we did do a pool closure for the deck cleaning at the Recreation Pavilion, as well as a number of other items that happened there. And as a matter of fact, just last night, we completely replaced the pool pump. So that'll be the next one out, but we spent a lot of time. So that's it for both of us. I'm going to stop share here so that people can see and see if anybody has any questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Councilmember Ryan and then Woodard.
Just a comment. Thank you for working through this pandemic things, and we're getting things up going. I know I'm excited when I see kids wanting to do the aquatic programs and the camps and that, because I remember I had 2 boys that went through those programs and they really like that. And so thank you for working hard on that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
2 questions and a comment. So the first question goes back to the mowing. First, thank you for that. That's amazing. A third of an FTE just to mow the city, which I'm about to ask for more mowing, which is on 236. It's not part of our parks, but we have, when you're heading out 236 on the right-hand side, there's that little patch of grass, and there's even a protected area that is connected to, I think you've mowed it maybe once or twice. Is that, once again, one of those words outside of
the cross street?
Can I give a name?
Sure.
I don't know the name of the street, but the resident that lives across is, I don't want to put her name out there like that.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
we and I have contacted the person. So
Yes.
we mow it. Actually, it's a public works. The area up above is a public works area,
Right.
and they mow it about twice a year.
Okay.
So I can certainly check to see when the last time they mowed it was.
Yeah, I was just curious if
It's a
that's-
water vault.
Yeah, I was
It's
just
up
curious if
above
that
the
was
hillside.
included in there because of the, it's a nice little space, it's got a trail through there and all that. And then the second question really was going back to Ballinger Park and now looking at the trash. And I'm just curious, has the dynamic changed positively, negatively, or no difference with new bathrooms down there? Is that added, complicated, or just curious how that's playing out?
Interesting question. Yes and no. So for the most part, it makes cleaning the restrooms much easier. They were getting old and becoming a problem. And so now when you go in and clean it, it looks clean, as opposed to it still looks old. So it makes a big difference on being able to clean it. We also have hot water there, which we didn't before. The trash issue is, I don't think it's changed. As a matter of fact, I won't say that it's worse. I'll just say that there's more. There's higher volume And it's because with the new amenities, that park is getting used so heavily that it's just constantly busy, which is a good thing. But it does mean that there is a higher volume. So periodically, we have had to go down there and that dumpster gets full and we have to go down there and actually haul stuff to a different location. However, having the extra person on the weekends is going to help with that a lot to help us make sure that we keep it clean, because not having somebody on the weekends and trying to catch up or have somebody come in on one day made it.
Especially when it's heavily used on the weekend.
That's right.
So that's excellent. And then the comment is similar to Councilmember Ryan's, which is just thank you for the work that you all do. In particular, I see a lot of your staff out in the city, and that just means a lot to me personally. You know, just seeing the trucks drive by, you don't know what they're doing, but seeing them drive by matters. You know, it shows that we are out there. So I just want to acknowledge that visibility, and then to see the actual work behind that is impressive. But starting with the visibility, I think the residents notice that and appreciate that. And I think they would be shocked to hear that you were understaffed because, again, you seem like you're everywhere. So appreciate that aspect of it.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you both for the presentation. And yeah, I would echo thanks for all of the hard work, and excited for us to hopefully figure out some ways to get some additional staff in to increase programming, because it is hard, I will tell you, as a parent who tries sometimes and misses out on some of those windows occasionally. I will be very excited when we have some more capacity there. So excited to hopefully hear more about that next time you come in. Did have one question about with that increase of capacity, and actually it's a follow-on a little bit to Councilmember Wooders' comment about trash. I know we had limited some of our trash receptacles in some of our parks and around the community, with the hope that folks would pack things out, and I think we've had various amounts of success with some of that. I guess I'm curious if that's something we can reassess and take a look at where we're seeing kind of larger quantities of garbage show up, and whether or not a trash receptacle might help address some of those.
We certainly can review it. I can tell you, for example, at Bicentennial, we did do the meals program, and we did add cans back to that park. Some of the parks we find, firefighters, for example, such a small park that it seems to work there, but there are other parks that we have either added back in or added extras to. However, down at the boat launch, it was a problem having garbage cans there because there was no possible way to keep them emptied through, even if I had somebody there, you'd have to go there 3 times a day. So, and then they get full, they bring bees, they get knocked over. So it was easier to have a centrally located single dumpster, but I may have to increase the amount of times that it gets emptied. But that in that particular case, it works better to have fewer garbage cans, but a centrally located place to carry the trash.
Are we, when we put in the accessible playground, are there plans to have trash cans in that area?
We will need to.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that you continue to look at those things and that we're adding them where they make sense. That's great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I just wanted to say that in the past, I would go occasionally to Lake Ballinger, but I've been going a lot more recently, and my goodness, there's a ton of people there. And they're all enjoying themselves, and they're really using that pier. They're swimming, they're doing all kinds of stuff. So we did something right. And even though we had to close it down last summer, this summer it's getting used. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay. Whoops. So we're, did you want to break here or for Councilmember Samore or?
If the council would like to move while they transition their PowerPoint to excuse Councilmember Samore, we can do that now while they're setting that up.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to excuse Councilmember Sommer from tonight's meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? She has been excused. Thank you so much. Next is the performance measures from our Public Works Director, Eric LaFrance.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. It is good to be back before you. I want to take this opportunity to introduce to you the person sitting next to me. This is our new Maintenance and Operations Manager. His name is Jesse Hoffman. We stole him out of California, and he's already up here, and he's lucky enough to have found a new house already. So that's good. He's moving into a new house. So we hope he sticks around for a little while. See if this works. There we go. As a reminder, Public Works encapsulates both our operating side and our engineering side, and then in the middle is our fleet management. So under operations, we have storm, street, sewer, and water. Fleet management, we have 2 employees that help keep all of our stuff running. And I'll jump right into some of the numbers. The first, utility locates, kind of gives you an idea of just the development activity in the city. It's not the best measure, but it does show when that number is higher, that means we have more people digging in the ground, and that's usually associated with development. There's a lot of information here. I'm not going to go through all of these. I did want to point out that it says crosswalks repainted. You may have noticed that we just completed our striping contract, so all of our traffic lines out there should be nice and bright. And then as the summer comes on, this is the time of the year we do inspect our crosswalks and we provide any maintenance that's required. On this slide, I wanted to just highlight some of the challenges that we're facing due to some supply chain issues with as a result of the pandemic. What you're looking at there is one of our brand new trucks. That was one of 2 trucks available in Western Washington. We no longer have the ability to order trucks from the state contract. They're not even accepting orders. They won't start accepting orders until this fall to be fulfilled next fall. So if we want a new truck, luckily we found this truck at Bickford Ford. There was 2 trucks there, and we went through, jumped through a whole bunch of hoops so that we could sole source it because we needed a new truck. And it actually was purchased the week before we got it, but the guy brought it back. So we got this new truck, and because there's not any out there right now. And one of the other ways this is challenging us too is equipment. We kind of saw it coming, and we've ordered replacement parts ahead of time so that we have more stock now than normal, because you just can't go to the shelf and grab something off the shelf anymore. You gotta plan way ahead. And so we're doing that to accommodate for the conditions that we're living in. So as part of our MPDS permit, we're required to clean and inspect all of we're required to inspect all of our catch basins and clean when necessary. And you see there that we've started cleaning catch basins. This is the time of the year where that really heats up, so that number should jump up to a normal yearly total that you'll see our pattern of cleaning roughly 350 catch basins a year with our Vector trucks. So we have 3 lift stations in the city, and we inspect those every week to make sure that stuff keeps flowing where it should. On the 3rd line there, it talks about some video inspection, and I did want to take a moment to talk again how we're partially being affected by supply chain issues. But so we under our current budget, we had budgeted to buy a new video truck. This would speed up and give us more capacity to be able to video those underground pipes, find problems ahead of time. But you may recall, I think it's been a couple years ago, when we were talking to you about the side sewer lateral issue, where the city owns the part of the side sewer that's between the property line and the main. So we have a small responsibility of that small pipe that goes off toward your house. Well, they now make a handy dandy little launch video that can go from the main line. We have the cameras moving down the line. We get to the side one, we can send a little satellite camera up that. And since we're responsible for it, we think, well, let's make sure we can look at it. That was a $70,000 plus ad, which blew our budget. So what you'll be seeing in the months to come is that we're going to bring in a revised budget amount so that we can get the camera with that extra capacity. This first line, manual reads, we have an automatic meter reading system in the city. We are going through a somewhat painful process of upgrading it from an older version to a newer version, because the older version was running off of 3G, and 3G is no longer supported. And so we had these nice meters that were sending radio signals, but we were unable to get those. So we've upgraded to the version 4, and you see, 12,000 manual reads. That is way too many. And so we are going through and replacing all those to version 4 meters, and we should see that number come down a much more reasonable number as we move forward. In the middle of this graph, you see the number of valves exercised. Those are water valves, and essentially that just means we go out and we turn it its full travel distance to close the valve and open the valve to make sure it doesn't rush shut or some other way backfire. And so that's an important thing that we need to keep on, because I don't know if it came across your radar, but yesterday, our contractor on 220th that's doing 220th and 66th that's doing our water main replacement, they were working near an existing pressure reducing vault that we have, and that vault, we had shut the water off, which increased the pressure in the vault. The contractor cut the pipe, which allowed some of the equipment in the vault to shift, and then it was no longer sealed. We had a water leak. Our crews responded awesomely. We got out there. We worked with the contractor till about 11 o'clock last night. I think we got everybody's water back on about 10 o'clock. But that's some important. One of the, why I mentioned that with next to valves exercise, is that one of the challenges we had is that when we went into 220th to shut off a valve, because it's in 220th, it's one of the valves we exercise. It's hard to exercise. It's got traffic control. And so maybe we exercise it about half as much as we would normally on a valve that's easy to get to. Well, it didn't quite want to shut down all the way. And so then we had to go and shut other valves off to cut more water off. But we'll be replacing that valve as part of this project now. So that was good that we found that out. Highlighting fleet management, and there's that nice looking truck again. You see the second line down, number of shop hours billed to contract agencies. So one of the ways in which we can have 2 full-time mechanics is that we sub out our mechanics work to our neighbors, and City of Shoreline being the biggest user of that. And so roughly a third of the time that they're in our shop, they're working on other people's equipment. But that allows them to be there and respond when we have issues like the water main break. We brought out a trash pump. We started it up, realized the oil was fouled. They took it back to the shop, and then we went to go get a rental one, and then the trash pump showed back up, and I'm like, is that the rental? And they're like, no, I'm like, oh, they already changed the oil. So they took it down there, and within a half an hour, changed the oil out, had it back up there and running, pumping out the water so we could get to work, which is really a good thing to have. And then one of my last slides talks about fuel efficiency. Now this is for 2022. We don't have any numbers on this. And you see from the time we've been tracking 07, we had a downward trend, and then about 17, you see that we've had an uptick in the fuel usage. That is mainly due to the fact that we have more equipment out there. So we've hired a number of additional staff, and so we have more trucks burning fuel. I see these numbers kind of leveling out until such time as we look at maybe converting some of our fleet to electric. We're looking at this all the time, and we've made decisions that, especially in the case of a first generation electric, we're going to let them iron out those wrinkles before we invest in fleet there. So I think in the years to come, you'll see those fuel savings go up as we convert to non-fossil based fuels. And then I'll always end my presentation with engineering services, because all the glory goes to the guys doing the work. But we have engineers that are in the office and helping us out. I think Roth, our engineer that designed the west side water main, he was out there during the water main break. It's very nice to have that capacity out there to problem solve on the fly. And so west side water main, we're working on that. We're managing that contract. We're still trying to complete the design for Phase 2 Main Street so we can go to construction next year, partnering with Sound Transit to make sure that those improvements that they're putting in our city are up to our standards. And then, of course, we're supporting community development, doing any engineering reviews necessary. And then, like yesterday, supporting maintenance and operations with our engineering staff out there to address in the field issues. And with that, I will take any questions you might have.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Councilmember McCardle.
Thank you, Mayor. First, just want to thank you for all your hard work you do out there within the city and keeping it up and running, talking a lot about the water and those kind of things that we don't really think about or look at every day. I'm just going to point out one thing on the slide on the street maintenance side, and this isn't a dig at anybody, but just to bring it to our attention that, one of our responsibilities is to maintain our streets. And when we used to do it was with a chip seal program. And you notice the last couple of years, there's been 0 miles chip sealed. So that's something I'd like the council to, have further discussions on and look at reinstituting that program so we can, begin maintaining our streets better so we don't have to wait till they're totally failed and then reconstruct the whole street. It's a way to, keep our streets up and operating that's cheaper along the way rather than waiting till the bitter end when it has to be done. So other than that, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Councilmember Woodard.
A question and a comment. Thank you, Mayor. Echoing the thank you. One of my favorite departments. And last night was an example. Most people don't have to think about you until they're forced to think about you. And I would say that was a quick turnaround. I actually didn't know until I read the blue sheet that happened. And that's, I would say, kudos to you all, because that could have definitely been blowing up the internet in a negative way. So thank you for that work and that expediency. And then the other one's more of a, not a selfish question, but a self-invested question. The Adopt a Drain program, are you seeing any, impact, the word there, but is it making a difference? I mean, it feels good to do it, but is it actually one of those things where it's more feels good than it's actually doing good?
Well, I think I believe we implemented that last year. And as time goes on, hopefully we'll raise awareness and raise participation numbers. But those who are participating are helping for sure. Because anytime we can get somebody to go out and clear the drain during a storm, because we have thousands of drains and only 15 people that we can assign to them during a storm. If you have a drain in front of your house, it is in your best interest to get it and clear it so it doesn't overflow into your property.
So on that note, is Laura part of your department?
Yes.
Okay. I would just say personally, I would love to see in your presentation just those donated hours, or whatever we call them, volunteer hours, just because I don't know how big it is, but it'd be good to document that. I know you already are. She asked us for the hours quarterly, I believe it is, maybe monthly. But just in the spirit of showing people it is making a difference. That's why I was not trying to bait you or lead the witness. Is it making a difference, or does it feel good? And I'm happy to keep doing it because it feels good, but I'd also like to know it's making a difference.
Okay.
And also, even when I'm checking out my drain that I've adopted, I always check the ones around it, because we have like 2 or 3 more drains right on the streets. So if everyone did that, because there's not only the ones in front of their house, there's one on the other side of the street, and then so forth. Yes, go ahead.
And I forgot. I know it's not just the parks people that we see. You all being out there is also awesome. I meant to lead with that, but I got sidetracked by the drains. But nonetheless, I recognize that, and I'm just saying I hear that from our residents, that they appreciate seeing us because it gives some level of comfort, I think is what it is, that if something did go wrong, we know you're out there. So thank you for that. And I personally love seeing the Vector truck. So I always stop and take photos because I'm that dude. But anyway, thank you for all that work.
Thank you. That's appreciated.
Well, I was in traffic during that on 66, and I thought that we postponed our street, improvement. And I'm slowing down, looking, and I couldn't tell what was going on. Now I know what it was. But I really thought, did I miss something in a meeting? Because I thought we postponed that.
We did postpone the pavement reconstruction so that we had time to put the pipes in the ground, and so that's what we're doing now.
Okay,
So next year, we'll be reconstructing that pavement.
all right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, we're done with this presentation. And Jesse, I just wanted to welcome you to the city. It is 8:22. Does anyone need a break? A 5-minute break? We can vote on it. If not, we'll just continue. Okay. So now we're waiting for the next presentation, which will be with our CED Director, Christy Osborne. And it will just be a minute.
The new microphones always catch me off guard here with the red being on. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. I am here to represent the Community and Economic Development Department. And here is a photo from today, as a matter of fact. Something interesting to point out for you all. 4 of the folks in this picture have been hired this year since the beginning of this year. So COVID has not been my favorite event that has happened recently. It has created challenges, I would say. But the good news is that we have some really great people that have come to the city recently. And so I'm heartened that onward and upward as we tackle the things ahead of us. So just to remind you, we do development services, long-range planning, work with the assistant city manager on economic development, and do a portion of code compliance in the city. Because we're planners, we like to have goals and policies and mission statements to direct what we're doing. So we revised our mission statement last year of what we're trying to accomplish in our department as part of the city. So I like to say that we're building community through different avenues here for City of Mountlake Terrace. And then we have a list of what we feel are our most important responsibilities. And of course, the first one is trying to deliver superior public service and being very responsive to the community. And so that's something that we continue to work on and hope to improve, along with community engagement and protecting our city's natural resources, and working coordinating and working with other partners, city, state, regional, federal partners, and also internally, I think is equally as important. Some of the metrics that we have to share with you, the first ones I'm probably most proud of in our efforts to improve what we're doing here is days to get building permits in and out the door in development applications. And this is even more remarkable because we truly have what I feel is the best building official I've ever worked with in 32 years. Matthew Gizzle, he is phenomenal. He's been working without a building inspector for over the last year, which makes this even more incredible. So you can see the number of average days of us trying to get out building permits is 38.5 days, when last year we improved to 87 days and continuing to improve. So kudos to Matthew, because he's killing it here at the city. For our cost recovery, we're still just with the amount of development activity that we've had for, the last 4 or 5 years, those numbers have continued to be fairly high. We'll see how we fare on the next half of this year as we see the markets figure out what they want to do, and with interest rates going up. And then for code violation cases, we're really tracking some land use violations and building violations. That's been fairly limited from our department just due to staffing and COVID. This doesn't take into account what the code and compliance officers are doing out of the police department. So this is just kind of CED. And we have a picture here for development services of Ballinger Park has kept us busy the last little bit and will continue to do so, where we had worked on permitting for the pier and boat launch and restrooms and the accessible playground and trail. And we're currently working on the Hall Creek restoration project and are meeting to permit the viewing platform as well coming up here. So a lot of great things happening there. For comments, we have a couple. Shauna is one of our new permit specialists, which is the position that sits there at the front counter, takes all the phone calls, handles all the permits that come through the counter, not only for CED, but for engineering, utility permits. Everything comes through our front counter pretty much here at the city as far as all of those things go. So here's a couple of nice comments from customers. We'll typically get, and I wish I had more, and I just don't keep track of them like I do, but we do have comments from other folks that are doing a good job as well. We also get comments when people are not very happy with us as well. So I could provide you with a list of those, or phones that are out to here sometimes as well, but we give it the old college try around here. For some of our totals of values of projects that we're working on right now, we're just over 32 million. We have a temporary certificate of occupancy for building 2 for Terrace Station. That's gonna bring that up another 32 million here within the next few days. So that will be something to add to that total in the second half as well. So we're still processing permits. But the big ones definitely kind of make those numbers a lot bigger, of course. For pre-applications, we're at 13 right now. Had one a couple days ago. I haven't really seen a downturn in people coming in for pre-apps, which is good. So I think there's still a lot of interest in developing in the city. So hopefully we'll be able to maintain that interest and then see some permits come in from those pre-application conferences, but still seeing a lot of interest. Stefan and I talked to a lot of people. We're getting phone calls. So that's all good. Land use and engineering permit applications were down somewhat the first part of this year on some of those. Let's see what else is of interest. We're tracking pretty much for building permits. We've changed the how we count inspections. Before, my understanding is that if somebody went out and did 3 inspections at the same house, that was counted 3 times. I'm trying to truth that a little bit to say if we go out regardless of the number of inspections that someone's doing, that's a trip, just to keep those numbers a little bit real. And we're still being able to serve the public in one day if they call in for an inspection. So all good. Planning Commission, you guys have given us some great new people on the Planning Commission to work with, so they are off and running. Some of the things they worked on, of course, was the Rec and Parks Master Plan, some of the code enforcement work that we did. They've talked a great deal about doing some sub-area planning for the comp plan effort coming up in 2023 and 2024. They also have talked about the multifamily property tax exemption, and affordable housing seems to be a priority for them as well, so they are very supportive of that. We also decided at the last meeting that we're going to do some code revisions coming up this fall before we start in the comp plan in 2023 and 2024, since that target date moved to December of 24, that we have to get the comp plan done, and trying to get some things through the Planning Commission and to you guys on City Council this fall. So there's a few issues that have come up that we wanted to tackle. One is undergrounding utilities. And when we do that, when we require that, we get a lot of phone calls for how that's implemented, and the wording in our code is contradictory in different sections. So want to bring that to you folks this fall, just to make sure that we're all on the same page of when we're requiring that. Something that I'm most excited about is street standards. Been wanting to do this since I've been here, and that is coordinating all of our street standards into the same section of our code and clarifying what our standards actually are, which would be nice for implementation and the development community. So keeping it clear, keeping it concise, and keeping it all in the same area of our code, so it is a lot user-friendly than it is right now. And then Planning Commission wanted to take a look at our provisions for plan unit developments as well. They're not excited about what we have in code currently. We tend to hear about it every time we come in with a planned unit development, so they want to take a look at those provisions and see if they're working like they should be. So Planning Commission is going to be very busy coming up here in the next couple of years with a lot of things that they'd like to accomplish. For how we're doing in public outreach, as you guys know, that's not the norm. I kind of laughed when I seen this, that we got 15 how we're doing customer surveys last year, and I'm not sure how that actually happened since our door was closed, but we'll just pretend that actually happened. I don't think that we've got any per se this year, and I don't think we got any last year, but we typically will hear from folks how we're doing in the form of an email or a phone call. So we pretty much know how we're doing on a daily basis. I would like to think that for the most part, we're improving our customer service as we've moved forward these last several years. Planning Commission is tracking pretty consistent with the number of meetings that they've been having, and we'll have a lot more public hearings coming up. They have a public hearing at their next meeting, so by the time this year ends, they should be pretty much in line with what they're doing. And then we continue to improve our informational publications and directions and et cetera, and trying to improve our website every year. So been working on that. And economic development, we've been participating, and Stefan can talk a little bit more about that, but haven't done something since I believe the end of last year, where we had folks here at the city, or that we've actually done outreach due to COVID. For city property values, you can see we've ticked up on that, which is to be expected. Valuation has gone up another just over 9%, And our median home price is now up to $480,000 here in the city. So about a $100,000 increase using the same metric from 2020. New businesses, this is through Department of Revenue statistics. So again, pretty standard with what we've done previously the last couple of years. Some of the number of new business employees, we don't have that information available from Department of Revenue, so we won't be able to share that with you until we meet again next time. Here's some pictures of some of the ribbon cutting that happened previously that a lot of you folks attended as well. Those were great to get that going again. And then we moved all of our inspection requests online. So as we're moving to online permitting, we moved solely to online inspection requests, and that's been very helpful because that gives us a means to track inspections and also gives the customer the ability to track their inspections as well. So they can go into their portal and take a look and make sure that they're on the schedule, and so nobody's getting missed when it comes the next day and they're waiting for inspection to occur. For some of our other metrics, we work on business licenses with the finance department. We changed the numbers a little bit of how we were tracking them from the last couple of years. So you can see the last couple of years, the numbers were pretty high. But included in that were business licenses for folks that were like contractors, a plumbing contractor, and they need a business license and those type of things. We were trying to get a little bit more refined numbers of what's actually happening in the city, and not just everybody that has to get a business license. So hopefully that helps a little bit more. And then again, we're kind of still waiting for information from Employment Security and others just because of the lag time and when we do our presentations. We haven't got revised population numbers as well yet for this year, but we'll have those when we do this again. And with that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Does anyone have any questions? Questions or comments? Councilmember Ryan and then Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. I know you didn't specifically report on this, but with your presentation, I wanted to thank the city with a national night out we had, and the city manager and the city clerk, especially. We had park directors and park people there and everybody, and I really liked it a lot, and that's part of the community relations you have here. And I just wanted to quickly add something that's wonderful that I enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mayor.
go ahead.
Yep. I think I have questions in there and comments, but I'm going to start with the comments, which is just thank you for all the work you all have been doing. And I don't think you've had a chance in this building with you and Stefan at the same time to say thank you for this building. And specifically, I don't know if you've noticed, because it's behind you, there's a little kid out there on a scooter who's just having a time of his life. I can see it on his face. You've made City Hall accessible. And that's the theme of my comments today, just being accessible. One of the things that I didn't see up there that is also accessible that I know is gaining traction is, I'm not going to get the name right, but what's going on here, whatever that website is, where you can go to the website and pull up where you want to know, what is that? That's, again, making it accessible. I don't think that your department's nebulous, but showing people how this city is growing is absolutely astonishing. I just want to make sure that was acknowledged, and really the hard work you're doing, especially with a brand-new team. That's great. You got 4 new great people, but there are 4 new great people trying to learn what the heck is Mountlake Terrace, I'm sure. A lot of institutional memory has lost, so that you've both been able to step up, and I'm not excluding my colleagues on my left here, but just recognizing you two because you're the ones doing the presentations today, but specifically leading those teams. So thank you for that. The comment is leading to the question, which I almost got there, which is, do we have plans to really take advantage of this? That supermoon is now coming into view. And yesterday, I saw at least 3 different people sitting out here. And it's just, again, in the spirit of accessibility, they weren't talking to each other, but I could see where one day that's going to just be a meeting ground. So in that spirit of just thinking, we have bigger, better plans for this. I don't even know if that's your department, but it just seems like, to the point, National Night Out, that is in your area. And the more people get involved and learn what we're doing, the better off we are. And I just think that plaza is going to be gorgeous. So everybody who's not in my chair, you're sad now because that moon is right there. I can see it see it coming through. And it just, to me, so many opportunities with that open space, and the moon crosses right over this gorgeous skyline, especially when we have this warm weather. Apologize for moving in and out of the microphone. But again, message here is thank you, you rock. And then bigger picture, other plans like that. So.
That would be part of programming through the Parks Department. But I 100% agree with you. It's been really great being here later on at night and seeing how many people are out in the plaza. Families are really utilizing that space quite a bit. So I think it is absolutely doing what it's intended to do, and there's absolutely a lot more things that could be done out there. So yeah, it's a great space.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Well, I think the lack of questions and more questions and comments is because your department is really moving. You're getting things done, and we don't hear anymore. We don't hear a lot of the other
Not as
stuff.
much, yeah. That's a good thing. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Did we want to take a 3-minute break? All right. Okay, let's take a 3-minute break. I'm going to resume our meeting, and next, with the report is the city manager, Scott Hugo.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm going to be reporting tonight on organizational development. Typically, this is combined with our metrics from our IT division. However, they've been busy over the last week updating servers and getting ready for new permitting software, so they haven't had a chance to prepare some numbers, and they'll be working late into the night tonight to reboot a server. So I'm going to be covering HR, and then we'll get the IT numbers to you when we have a chance. So some of the background of what HR does, the recruiting, training, salary and benefits, but also the Left One Disability Board, Civil Service Commission, special projects, and a whole bunch of other things filling in the gaps of what we can get done. So overview of some of the key factors here. Full-time new hires that you'll see there, quite a few recruitments filling positions such as accountant, permit specialist, public works operations manager, who you met earlier, 2 planners, associate planners, parks planner, 3 police officers coming on board, and then we've had maintenance workers in facilities and parks come on board, as well as a police record specialist. So it's been very busy recruiting. That said, though, we still have a number of positions opening. It's taken a while. We've got 2 aquatic coordinator positions open, still recruiting for a city engineer since earlier this year, a civil engineer, finance coordinator, additional maintenance workers, 3 maintenance workers still out there. So it is taking longer that you will see in the statistics. Then with regard to employee turnover, we've had 13 employees leave in the first 6 months. We had 10 resign, 2 were terminated, and then 1 retired in the first 6 months of the year. The 10 resignations is really what stands out here for me. We typically don't have that level of turnover. That's part of that Great Resignation. And they're not just taking jobs, you know, in neighboring jurisdictions. They're moving to Minnesota and Alaska and just changing their whole lifestyles, even before they have jobs. With the volunteer hours that you'll see there, been a bit lower for the first half of this year than in pre-pandemic, but very much catching up. The value of the volunteer hours when it comes to maintenance worker 1 salary is close to $9,000 in benefits there. And then some additional measures. Average tenure is coming down. We lost 2 employees that had over 15 years of experience each, one a retirement and the other a termination. And I believe the retirement was our senior planner that really dropped our numbers. So yeah, the numbers are skewed there. And then the number of weeks to fill positions, you can see that going up as well. Facilities workers for a specific shift that Ken Courtmensch talked about, that's a maintenance position for parks that's working Thursday through Monday to provide that weekend coverage, and that took a bit longer to recruit for. And then patrol officers are taking longer. The civil engineer for development review took longer. On the flip side of that, the finance director only took 3 weeks to fill, who you will meet Monday as part of the second quarter financial review. And that is it for HR statistics in the first half of the year, unless you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions, comments? Councilmember Woodard?
Yeah, I'd be remiss not to thank you for the hard work, especially through these COVID times. But going back to the 10 resignations, I presume we do exit interviews And first question would be, is that confidential? I mean, I guess the first question is, do we do exit interviews? I shouldn't presume anything. So do we do exit interviews?
We frequently do. Oftentimes, an employee leaving of their own accord is happy to talk about
Okay.
why they're leaving. So it's not a secret.
Okay.
And so we do have those conversations. And while I want to necessarily go into detail in public,
Yeah.
let me follow up with the council in terms of some of the broad
Themes.
categories.
Yeah, so that was going to be my follow-up.
Leslie.
I'm recognizing as someone who literally did this as well. I didn't resign, but I left an entire field. I recognize there's a lot of reasons for that, but 10, I think we should see reasons and patterns at that point. And I don't know if anyone here has had access to that, so I would welcome any report that tells me, here's what we're seeing.
Sure. We'll put
and
that
again-
together for you so that
Perfect.
you all can see it. I don't
Wonderful.
think we've shared that with anybody. in the
Thank you.
council, so absolutely.
Anyone else? I guess not.
Thank you very much.
So next is the report on city council, city manager, and community relations. And that is with our city clerk, Virginia Clough. And Stefan, are you going to be part of it? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, Virginia Clough, City Clerk, Community Relations Director, here with Assistant City Manager Stephen Clifton. And we're providing the performance measures for both the City Council and City Manager's Department for the last 6 months. Again, showing you the last in-person meeting prior to June, which was March of 2020. So just thankfully, in June, we resumed in-person meetings, and we also converted to this hybrid format, which you can see we're still adjusting to. And let's see. There we go. We have some staffing changes in our department. Prior to the meeting, I introduced you to our new Deputy City Clerk, Executive Assistant, Jennifer Jokey, and we are really happy to have her here. We also had a reorganization May 1st. We brought in 2 administrative assistants from Public Works and Community Development into the City Manager's office to provide better continuity of operations. And this was really pronounced during COVID with 5 and 10-day quarantines and outages and not having people doing the day-to-day work without backup. And on more than one occasion, we had 2 folks out at the same time. And so we consolidated into our department. We're cross-training. We've had 1 of the 3 change over, so we're still undergoing cross-training, and we'll be doing some more of that in the coming weeks. So, but it is working out really, really well. So I'm really proud of this change and proud of the staff for adapting and really bringing their game up. And they're also interacting really well with Ricky, who sits next to them in the community relations area. In the City Council Department for Metrics, 25 public meetings this year, which is right on track. Normally you are between 50 and 52 for the year. So we're tracking there. Ordinance and resolutions adopted is 10. That just ebbs and flows every year. A lot of times the first half of the year is pretty low because there's more review, just like you've seen with multifamily property tax exemptions. You might have several work sessions, and then the second half of the year, you start adopting some of those things. So you'll see a resolution and an ordinance for that. You'll see the budget ordinance. You'll see property tax ordinance. So that should pick up in the second half of the year. And we used to track some of these other metrics, but they're incomplete, and we'll be updating those in the coming budget and removing those. It's too hard for you folks to track all of the meetings that you're going to. Just some pictures here to show that our council continues to be very supportive of the community. I'll show you some more ribbon cuttings, but here's a few just samples of the ARPA recovery show. the video we did with Congressman Larson, Earth Day, that trash receptacle, his council member McCardle in there jumping on the trash in there. And Ricky thought it was pretty impressive that a council member was working on Earth Day and getting in there and getting dirty, and shows that you guys will, do anything to help the community. So you've all been at a number of events. We'll have some more pictures in the other part of the presentation, but these are some samplings all from Facebook, from Twitter, from Instagram, and YouTube. Here's the outline of our department programs in your budget: city manager, city clerk, city attorney / legal, and community outreach. Those are the 4 programs in the budget. And the staffing below, all of these are full-time employees with the exception of the contracted city attorney. And then the roles are on the right side. I won't cover all of those today. In the city manager's department, in community relations, our Facebook posts are tracking with previous years. Now we have Ricky. In those previous years, we only had someone for less than half of a year. I was covering that along with city clerk, and also in 2020, I covered most of the year solo. So in addition to these numbers, Ricky's also doing quite a bit of outreach, as you'll see. Daily website page views is pretty much on track with previous years. It was a little bit higher last year, not being open in person for the full year, so more website views. Number of news releases is pretty close to previous years. We had a few slow periods without having events and things to promote, but still about the same. City Hall emails is pretty much about the same from normal years. Again, some of those were higher the last 2 years with the pandemic and more email communication. And I noticed that public disclosure requests were up this year so far, the first half, for non-police, which is our public records officer, Rebecca Guillen. She's doing a great job. And the police numbers are very close to the last 2 years. Twitter followers, we're at 99. It's a little less, but, a lot of the local, jurisdictions and agencies are already following us. So that's not a surprise. And we're sticking right there with Twitter. We are doing more Instagramming, so you might see fewer numbers for Facebook and Twitter because we're also using Instagram. And then here the biggest increase is ribbon cuttings. We have done 5 in the first half of the year. And we also extended invitations to others, Patty's Egg Nest, the UW Medical Center, and some of the others that have not yet taken advantage of that. And then I'll pass it over to Stefan to talk about the next couple slides.
About that. Good evening, council members. For the record, Stephen Clifton, Assistant City Manager. This slide relates to marketing and outreach, and I regularly communicate with representatives from 425 Magazine, Puget Sound Business Journal, etc. And so far this year, we've posted a few ads in each of those magazines. And what I always do when I contact representatives from those entities, I always ask them, what is the focus of a particular issue, and how many readers are there for a particular issue? Because that plays a lot in how and where you want to market. And so we tend to focus our ads in issues that might relate to, for example, the construction industry might be a certain issue, or real estate issue might be another issue, et cetera. So we are posting ads, and we're kind of changing up the messaging, the leaders of, we call it the leading message on this. For example, on this one, all aboard to Mountlake Terrace. And so the focus is really trying to get people's attention that light rail is coming to Mountlake Terrace, and you may just want to get on the train sooner than later if you want to invest in the community, because we are starting to see things happen. Snohomish County Tourism Bureau, visitor marketing content, and that's just working with the Bureau on messaging and their editorial team, et cetera. And then also the EAFC, Economic Alliance Snohomish County website updates. We try to provide those and keep those up to date as often as possible. I recently had a meeting last week with Wendy Poischbeg. She replaced Terry Bacciuello at EASC, and the focus there was really to discuss the scope of work tied to the contract between the city and EASC. And so we talked about marketing, we talked about outreach, we talked about how EASC could help the city better. And so we have ongoing conversations with so many people. And when you talk about outreach, more so than now, but I think with MFTE coming online, I think we'll see a lot more. But Christy and I have had conversations with representatives from New York who, they're working. We have a project right now that we're reviewing. And we have talked with developers from Texas, the Bay Area. There are people who are looking at Mountlake Terrace, looking to invest. And so I think the climate just has to be right, and I think we're getting there. So I wouldn't be surprised within the near term that we see a lot of activity starting to take place, particularly as we get closer to light rail coming online. So I'll stop there to keep it short so you can take over.
Thank you, and I'll show you some more photos later, but as you know, we just opened last week with in-person services again at City Hall and the police station, and here's a couple of updated photos, and I have some more at the end of the presentation, but I just wanted to thank Stefan for all of his work on this project. It has been a huge ordeal, and he's just done a wonderful job. Thank you. And it might take a minute to advance because the file size on these are really large. Let's see if I can get it to go that way. There we go. So in community relations, information resources is something that we try to point out where people can find information. And as you know, we have a subscription for the city manager's weekly update, which I think is really, if a resident asks you, where's one place I can find a lot of information, get them to sign up for that on our website in the Notify Me module, and then they can get those to their email every Monday. The craze has gone digital, and that Stay Informed little boxes from our newsletter, it's in every issue on the council's page, on page 2. We have produced 3 newsletters so far this year. We typically do 6 in a year every other month, so those are the 3 newsletters we've done. And you'll see Ricky caught a candid photo of somebody at the pavilion looking at our newsletter that she put on Instagram. The website. So we launched this website in 2019. We get a free redesign with Civic Plus every 4th year. So we could initiate, we're eligible for starting our redesign this fall, and it would launch next spring. Depending on staffing, we may have to push that out a little bit, but we are eligible to update the website beginning this fall. Typically, we would launch by November 1st and start the process and kick it off about November 1st and then launch sometime around May. We may need to push that out this year, but it's coming in the next biennium, and that'll be one of our budget highlights. Social media accounts still, we're doing 2 Facebook pages with the rec department, also Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And here's some examples. Over on the left side, it wasn't in the first 6 months, but we did catch some pictures of cops and clergy that we held recently. And these are some of the other, we have an Instagram, a Twitter, and a Facebook posts here. And here's the mayor's interview from the month where we had Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and your interview, that was on Interview, and some of the kids featured at the camps, or I think this was Earth Day cleanup event that they had at the pavilion. So we're using Instagram more, and Ricky's doing a great job. Public input opportunities, of course, we have coffee with the city that we've had once a month, and we're going to keep the virtual format for now. We have talked to folks and asked for their input, and it's a 6 o'clock dinner time, and if people just have a question, they can just zoom in for a few minutes and leave, or even if they stay for the full hour, it's a lot easier and accessible than driving or walking here. Also, nighttime can be an issue when it starts getting darker earlier. So I think that's working pretty well. We could always maybe have a few of them in person in the future, but I think right now we're getting better participation with the virtual format. Public comment, we've had 25 council meetings, so there's 25 opportunities for that. We had our annual board and commission recruitment in the spring. Events, we had for public input, we had the Recovery Roadshow for ARPA funds that we helped coordinate with Snohomish County here and showed off our new city hall, and they were really excited that we offered up the facility for them, and I think that worked really well, and you saw the flexible space with the design of this doorway opening up to utilize the lobby, and this door out to the plaza, we were able to kind of flow and really show off how we utilized not a lot of space in a big way. So that was exciting. We had one of our own online surveys for a Bicentennial Park Playground. And they also had public comment for those at the RPAC and the NPIS level. And then underneath were some of the surveys that we shared on social media from other agencies. And then we had 3 public hearings that were opportunities for input. Community engagement, we have done a lot now that we have Ricky. One of the goals of that position when we reinvented it was to have more outreach and more engagement and let that person focus on that. And so she is out in the community or virtually a lot. And most of these next 2 slides are things that she has done. And just some different types of examples that the city's doing for community engagement. So she took on the outdoor dining map. I think you might recall she did the public art map previously. She works closely with Laura Reed and Stormwater on those events that are in conjunction with Snohomish Conservation District. She's made nice graphics. You'll notice that coffee with the city. There's a little Mountlake Terrace mug behind that I think she photoshopped. And we are hiring, so she's very creative and done a great job and working on graphics. Also here, she does little interviews with people in the community. This one was Sally Buckingham, AKA the Flag Lady. There's a gentleman that lives over here in Mountlake Terrace Plaza, and he's in his 90s, and he has a little corgi, and we see him as employees walking around 8 o'clock every morning when we come into work, and then he walks in later in the day, and she went and interviewed him, and that was on social media. These 5 folks, I gave a tour of City Hall after hours for Vineyard Park residents, and they were terrific. And then we sat in the kitchen upstairs and answered questions about the project and the development map we shared and, invitations. And then we've gotten back to highlighting the artists and the artist displays that are in the library lobby in conjunction with the Arts Commission. So that's some great community engagement that we've been doing. Some of the spring, summer events in the period we're talking about tonight, April Pools Day is a water safety event, the Earth Day Park cleanup, the Recovery Roadshow. And although the July 3rd event was outside of this window, we did all of the planning during this period, and Jeff Betts does a great job heading that up. And as I mentioned, we had 5 ribbon cutting events. So we were pretty busy. And in addition, we were preparing for Tour de Terrace, National Night Out, and upcoming, we still have Arts of the Terrace that the Arts Commission is working very hard on, and primarily on that event, we are in a promotion mode, and I know Ken and Facilities does some work to help those folks with that. So, we do quite a bit of work on that in the months prior. Public education, some of this is our material, and some of it was shared from others, but we're constantly sharing educational material. Here we have food resources. During COVID, we've tried to take a lot of extra time to share extra resources for food and housing, anything we can, rent help, business assistance, those kinds of things. But at the same time, you can see in the newsletter, we addressed where's my watershed and water quality and flooding issues and where to place your garbage cans and how to report a pollutant spill. Just everyday things that people want to know. We're still confused on where to put our garbage cans and how to put them out there. And we want to remind the public to please bring your garbage cans in, because if you don't, we get calls here, and then I have to call Waste Management, and they have to call you back. Okay, and again, we had a lot of education about the Ballinger Park and the waterfront over the last year, and we did some park reminders. Leash your pet, pick up the pet waste. I try to at least once a year put something in. Councilmember Ryan and others, we've had residents come for public comment asking for pet waste reminders, so I try to get it in the newsletter at least once a year. expanding online services for permitting, and construction updates. And Ricky got a pretty cool picture with the purple new water lines there. Community outreach. We've done so much between the two of us, with most of it handled by Ricky. It took 2 slides just for the individuals and community groups. Quite an assortment here, from scouts to agencies like Economic Alliance to some of our local talent here. Kathy Tura, many of you know her. She's on the Neighborhood Parks Improvement Subcommittee and lives nearby. Well, I didn't know she was an artist, and she had her art displayed, so we focused on that. That's a typo. It should say Lift Every Voice Legacy. We'll fix that. But we were involved with them on 2 events, Juneteenth and the Martin Luther King Jr. event. And we've, during the pandemic, made connections with the Korean Presbyterian Church, for example. I worked with them on COVID masking, and then Ricky followed up and did an outreach meeting with them. The Anti-Racist Coalition. The Nile has really stepped up and connected with us recently. You might have seen them cooking the hot dogs at National Night Out. And we have a Mountlake Terrace resident as the potentate, Dale. And Dave Mercer is moving up the ranks to be potentate in a couple more years. And here are the rest of the individuals and community groups that we've worked with, including the Ivy League. I know some of you here are involved with that group. We're going to be recognizing the Smith family on Monday for Tour de Terrace. And then you've seen some of these photos in the CED. I got beat out here, but the triple header ribbon cutting was a challenging day, but it was fun. And we started on one side of the street with 2 ribbon cuttings, and then we crossed the street and went over to Bagoose, Little Asia. We had some music from the high school, and now you may have seen them at a couple of more events that we had on 3rd of July, and we had them at National Night Out. So I gave them a list of events they could participate in, and they took us up on 3 of them so far, and I saw an ad that they were going to be back at Bagoose. I don't know if that's already happened or upcoming, but they're advertising them. So that's worked out really well, and I'll give Brett Holt some credit. He works for FEMA and has been a connection with the city, but he's the booster parent right now and doing a great job reaching out to us. Business outreach, we have quite a few contacts here between Ricky and I, and you can see some of these we did are new businesses that we've reached out to for ribbon cuttings, but they either weren't ready or it didn't work out timing wise. And I think we still plan to do one with Hadiani when they're ready, but they're not ready yet. So we've had a lot of good things going on there. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, you can see the diversity calendar that's posted on the website. That was a big step this year. We don't have a work plan with them yet, but we have the calendar adopted. And so after they approved the calendar, which wasn't in December like I had hoped, it was a little bit late, like probably more like February 1st-ish, sometime in February. We got it up and running, and then what we are doing is our department is taking each date that is featured on that calendar and preparing posts and graphics, in some cases news releases, and we get it to the chair and the vice chair of the commission about at least 3 weeks ahead. And we give them at least a week to turn it around so we can get it back, because we have to time these out with all of the other city news, all of the other posts, all of the other news releases. And it's a juggling act to, and sometimes things get trumped by perhaps a police situation that we have to post on that day, because you don't want to do 6 posts one day and nothing the next 2 days. So, we asked them to please get it back in a timely manner. And then at the same time, Ricky's doing an excellent job with some of the graphics here. You can see that some of these she created herself. And then we're also promoting the guest speakers that they have. They don't have them on every meeting, but when they do, we try to do a news release when we can and maybe do a graphic for the social media posts. So that's coming along really great. We're still very active working with state and federal delegation and our partnerships. We did so much work with Congressman Larson. I can't thank him enough for the work he's done for several years, more than a decade. And just this year, we got $2 million in the infrastructure bill for the Transit Connection Corridor project. and over $3 million for the Lake Ballinger restoration, and that included work with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I will also give a lot of credit to both our state delegation. A lot of those representatives and our senators came out for some of our ribbon cuttings down at Ballinger Park, and then they were at our City Hall dedication, as well as Snohomish County. We've had a lot of financial support from them for some of our projects. So thank you to all of them, and we'll continue to work closely with them. Some of the formal proclamations and recognitions we have include the senior planner Edith Duttlinger's retirement back in January, Black History Month, Arbor Day, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Public Works Week, and Juneteenth Independence Day. And more recently, we're trying to take those proclamations and put them out in the kiosk and sometimes show them on social media. And that Juneteenth event was really nice. I had the opportunity to attend with a few of you and some of our DEI commissioners, and that was a really fun day. So it was nice to go and get some photos. Some more good news. We have again earned the Wells City Award, which saves the city money on insurance. We got a grant. I think it was $30,000 grant for Trees for Terrace, and we were named Tree City USA. And we launched online pet licensing, so we've got some neat graphics there. And then the ribbon cutting you see here was for the life jacket kiosk, along with a close-up of the kiosk next to it. And that was part of the Ballinger Waterfront ribbon cutting day, where Ken mentioned earlier we had perfect weather back in May after we had had quite a few hailstorms in early May prior to that, and we just lucked out with that date. And we had set that date, a couple months before that. One of my favorite things to talk about in Mountlake Terrace is our volunteers. Here's just a few pictures. Down in the bottom is the NPIS I talked about. I talked about Kathy Tura. She's in the middle on the left with the sunglasses. And those folks, some of these folks on NPIS have served for a long, long time, and some of the new ones are doing a great job too. And Adam there in the middle is now also on the Planning Commission and will be recruiting for his replacement there. And, we did a feature on the Ivy League group who's doing a great job at Veterans Park. And I see some Amelia in there, and she's done a great job also helping with a special project at National Night Out that involves Smokey Bear because she works for the Forestry Department. And we've done a few features on the Garden Club, but if anybody's listening out there, we really need volunteers not only to serve on the Garden Club, but to take it over from Dave and Bonnie Mercer, who are retiring. And so I'll keep harping on that. We need people to participate on the Garden Club. And it's not a huge number of dates. It's a few dates per year. And even if you can only make one or two for an hour or two, they will take your help. They really make a difference in our community. I see two council members, Ryan and Murray, here to participate on that. And, they take care of the entryway flowers around the city. And it's really just planting them and weeding them and removing them at the end of the season are the three primary things. And the leadership also takes care of ordering the plants and getting funding with the city through, it's actually a line item in the budget. So thanks to the Garden Club for making our city look great. Now I'm going to show some pictures of the Civic Campus, and it's going to take a second to load because these are high resolution. This is the police station addition. And again, these were taken by ARC architects that I think they're featuring on their website. I'm not sure if they're already up, Stefan, I don't know if you know. But we've got the Stan Cron training room down below. The lobby, you can see in the lobby picture on the right, we have the medicine take-back box that's now available for folks to drop off any extra prescriptions. Instead of flushing them down the toilet, we want you to donate them here and take care of them. Dispose of them, not donate. Nobody's using them. And then the addition you can see in the top picture, and behind it you can see the old police station. So it really is a nice looking building and matches the rest of the Civic Campus. The next pictures are going to take a second here to load again. They're big files. Here's a few shots of the Civic Campus, City Hall from other angles, from the west side, the east side next to the plaza and then from the entrance. And it's really a sharp-looking building, and I can't tell you how many compliments we get on the design and how it turned out. I really have not heard complaints. People love our building, so I think we can all feel really proud of the process we went through to plan that and then design that, and our residents are really proud of that. So kudos to the community for participating in this process. And I have some interior photos that'll be here in a second. There we go. We've got the lobby on the upper left with some furniture in it now and new signage. And I really like how the signs turned out. On the right, instead of taking it from the back of the chambers, we showed how it kind of opens up and flows from the lobby into here, but we can open that up and make that a big flexible space. The bottom left is a Lake Ballinger room. You can see the really interesting, cool lighting above, and that's where the council has their executive sessions. But that is a very heavily used meeting room during the day. We have all of our leadership team meetings, a lot of department staff meetings. We use that all the time. And also it's the room where our Arts Commission, our RPAC, and the next week our DEI Commission will be meeting in that room in person. And then the upper right with the orange chairs is our staff break room, and I think there's a little Zen sand thing there. I forget what you call those. There's a story behind the chairs, and I bought the Zen tea so people could relax on their breaks. And then one final picture is our beloved Jerry Smith Town Center Plaza. We have a cool evening photo there, and then a daytime photo. And people are loving the bistro tables and chairs. They're loving the terraced, cement terraced seating. And as was mentioned earlier, kids are running around there. Kids are biking. People are having coffee. People are reading books. People are sitting by the fountain. It's used night and day. When I leave here at 10 or 11 o'clock, I see people in there. When I'm going by on the weekends, people are in that center. And that's what Jerry would have wanted. He wanted people to enjoy our city and our city hall, and I think that name was really appropriate, and we're really proud of that. So with that, I just wanted to show those to the community. If you haven't been here yet, we're now open, and if you can't get by during the day, we thought we'd give you a little sneak peek of some nice new pictures. Do you have any questions?
Yes, are there any questions? Comment? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Virginia, thank you for all the work that you've done to make this the community it is. I'm sure we'll have more on that later, but I did have a couple of quick questions. One is number of subscriptions to total numbers. So what are the total numbers of subscriptions on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and like the city manager weekly report? Do we have any idea of how many?
Subscriptions. I'll have to check. Yeah,
Okay.
I have to go in on the backside and check on those.
Yeah, I'd just be curious what the total numbers are, and how that's kind of varied throughout the years, I guess, where we're at. And then, you know, Instagram was the kind of the latest one that we're participating in. I'm curious about TikTok and what is I mean, that seems to be, you know, the latest trend for the kids. I know nothing about it, but I'm curious if there's a role or something that a place for us in that element as well.
Well, I can tell you I'm in a national communications organization, and that's something talked about a lot, and a lot of folks don't recommend it. And there's as a city clerk, there's record keeping on all of these things. So every post is a record, and those aren't as easy to manage as some of just the regular records that we have, social media and videos and a lot of storage space and different archival software required. And so it's a challenge. And I'll tell you, with 1.5 people, 1 1/3, depending on my week, if I'm more city clerk or more communications, it's hard enough to keep up with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and all the other things we're doing. You saw all the outreach, which we are really making outreach more of a priority with daily posts across our platforms. So adding a platform at this time with the staffing we have, I wouldn't really recommend it. we can, as we are now, streaming on YouTube, and I think that's something we could do more of and record videos and post them there. TikTok, I'm not so sure if it's something we're really interested in, although it would engage the youth. What we could maybe do is, contests when we start getting into more engagement with the schools. I have found, and Ricky will attest to this, that, and she's only been here a year, but with COVID, we are not getting the usual response times or responses at all from the school district. They've been closed. They've been, we're all dealing with staffing shortages. And any kind of coordination we would like to do with the schools, it's just not happening. So I used to go there, a few times a year for assemblies and other things, and that's just not happening. So I would like to have more engagement with youth and maybe have some contests and maybe utilize something like TikTok. But I just think the timing right now, until we're a little more further with COVID in the rearview mirror and maybe a little more staffing stability, we'll get there. We've made, you can see the progress we've made in the last 12 months now with a dedicated person doing outreach and engagement and, new and improved graphics, and focusing her time on those things has really made a big difference. So we can keep building on that, but we also have to prioritize what we already have going on.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Was there Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. First, let me address your colleague to your left there and say, he's like, what am I, chopped liver? Let me back up and say, what an amazing job you continue to do. And thank you for giving us your conceptual approach to putting us in publications. I still stand amazed at that business journal where you open up, there's a state of Washington, and it's Mountlake Terrace next. And it's just gorgeous, right? Can't separate those two. So to hear that that's continuing, just want to make sure we acknowledge that. And I already said thank you again for this building that's up on the screen. That said, you're going to disappear for just a second now. And I will just leave it simple and say Monday's going to be very interesting. And so I'll instead leave it here today at, if for some reason this was your last presentation, what a swan song. What a swan song. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You all know how I feel about you, and I don't know if I'll get to talk at all Monday, but
You will.
like we've always said, we got the best council and the best staff in the state. So I've been proud to be a part of it for a long time, and over 1,000 of these meetings, and I loved every minute of it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we're going to have to add to that agenda on Monday. All right, anybody else? Okay, that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Okay, so next on our agenda, is public comment. Do we have any public comments?
Does our member in the audience want to speak tonight, Ms. Whipple? No, and we have no one remaining in the online audience. We did earlier, but they were here for multifamily tax exemption, so no public comment tonight, Mayor.
All right, thank you. And so we can review the August 15th agenda, which it was pretty light with just the one, what was it? The one item, the Main Street and the ARPA funding. The ARPA funding might take a few minutes, so it won't be that short a meeting because we're going to have to add to this agenda. So everyone's already looked at it and we're fine with the agenda for Monday. And then, so next will be the council comments. Does anyone have any council comments? Councilmember Ryan?
I wanted to let council members know it's in 6 weeks, but coming up in September 24th will be the art show.
Great. You're getting lots of people.
No, we are down in numbers this year. And traditionally, the last deadline date, we have 33% applications on the last day.
Oh, well, that's normal.
That's normal, yeah. But we're down a bit.
Okay.
this year.
We better
But
start getting the word out.
we're still working it. We're going to extend the deadline another week because then we'll get that 33%, we think.
All right.
Deadline was the end of this week, so they'll probably extend it to like the 5th. They'll probably extend it to the 15th. You have to check the Mountlake Terrace art show website.
Oh,
I'm not sure the exact date. I know they're going to extend it another
okay.
week.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Anyone else for council comments? Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just since I will not be available for Monday night's meeting and the discussion of ARPA, I did want to share a proposal that the mayor and I have been working on for ARPA funding, just that, based on all the community feedback that we've heard, the community surveys, the roadshow and the feedback we got from the community there, the discussion of within the council, the city priorities and goals that we've established, kind of developed an outline of some ideas of how to utilize the ARPA funds. Look forward to further discussion on Monday night that I'll unfortunately not be available for, but continued funding. But it's just kind of an idea of how we can get the biggest bang for our buck with our community as far as, serving our underserved and those in need, looking at ways to help ensure we're providing the assistance that is needed out there, working with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission to identify the underserved communities, provide translation services, partnering with organizations to coordinate delivery of services, things like that, investing in our infrastructure, and for instance, potentially the CHIP seal program is an opportunity to get that back on target. We heard a lot about housing and housing affordability, so developing a housing action plan, coordinating and partnering with other organizations to expand housing opportunities and choices. Then another bucket, rebuilding our jobs and economy, ensuring that we get that market analysis and economic profile done, expanding our outreach and marketing campaigns, and providing assistance for businesses and citizens to help pivot to the new economy with for workforce development and job training programs, launching incubator programs, providing technical support, et cetera. And finally, another bucket, embracing our arts, culture, and diversity, and things like updating our arts and cultural strategic plan, adopting and implementing our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan, and taking advantage of and kind of engaging with more events, activities, performing arts, getting, anyway, just a lot of different ideas. Look forward to working with you all on to see if we can get really revitalize Mountlake Terrace and take advantage of the one-time opportunity we have with these ARPA dollars. So thank you. Sorry, I'm going to miss Monday.
Oh, dear. Go ahead, Councilmember Ryan.
On that, I just want to say I love this outline. Great job.
Thank you.
City Clerk?
Mayor, I had an email from Connor Ryan about the art show and the extended deadline, and the deadline is now August 19th, and we've updated the city's website.
Okay, great. So artists out there, this is your chance. Get your applications in. All right, are there any others? Anyone else with anything else to add? Okay. If not, the next thing on our agenda is adjournment. I don't have a thing, but I'll just.
Recording stopped.
I keep forgetting about it.